Today's market is not the same craziness that we have been experiencing the last couple of years. So things are changing and people want to know what they should do. What's the next step to take? And so I think part of helping a customer, a buyer or a seller to make good decisions is sort of help expectations and give food for thought so you can make some great decisions. So in this video, I'm going to cover 5 new challenges in today's market, definitely a shift from the last couple of years. So hopefully that will be a help to you. Hi, I'm Jill Thomas, real estate agent in the Sarasota area, and each week I bring videos about real estate, things like this, challenges in the market, and other things about our local community. But then also I talk about what it's like to live here in the Sunshine State. So whether you're coming or going, buying or selling, this might be a good channel for you. So subscribe and please keep on watching. I get questions almost daily from both buyers and sellers because they do want to make really good decisions. So here are 5 things that I think are really important for you to understand about the challenges in today's real estate market. Oh, and let me mention this is for buyers, sellers, resale, new construction. I'm really covering it all. So regardless of what bucket you kind of fall in, please listen to all 5 because it may end up pertaining to you more than what you realize. Number 1, pricing. Now, pricing really isn't a new concept in today's market. It's something that's discussed at any time, anywhere, any place. But there's definitely big changes here in regards to this and how both the seller and buyer need to approach it. So of course, in the last couple of years for sellers, they could put crazy numbers for the list price of their house, and there's even a good chance that they'd get offers over that. And all the terms, the other terms besides pricing in the offer in those contracts would favor the sellers and not the buyers. So now sellers are, oh, did I miss the mark? Did I miss the boat? Well, if you've seen some of my other videos about real estate statistics or statistics in our area, the prices are still way higher now than what they were 2 or 3 years ago. So you're not going to see all that craziness involved necessarily when you go to list a home unless you really list it below market value. That could take place then. But so sellers, things have settled down a bit and not all the terms are going to favor you. It's going to maybe be a little bit more balanced in that regard. So that's a little bit of a disappointment to some sellers. And then for buyers, just because things are shifting a bit, please don't think you're going to get these deep discounts going on right now, or you anticipate, oh, well, the market's going to crash, so therefore I'm going to offer 80% of the list price or something like that. Now, if the home is grossly overpriced, maybe that's what it's worth is 80% of the list price, but you've got to do some homework before you say that. You just can't pull a number out of the air and think that that's going to work. So for sellers, first of all, sit down with your listing agent. Sit down with your agent. Let's look at the comps, talk about the pricing. If you do want to be a little aggressive with that list price, okay, that's between you and the listing agent on how you want to approach that. But in the end, you've really got to listen to the market. What's the market telling you? Just not what your agent's telling you. How many showings are you getting? Are you getting offers? What kind of offers are you getting? If all of those things are low, 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 then maybe you do need to pivot and adjust that price a bit. And then buyers, again, you need to look at the comps from the last 30, maybe 60 days. We can't go back 6 months, like we right now because of the way everything has changed recently. So you want to look at those comps and make an intelligent offer on that house. So can you maybe get it for less off of list price? Yeah, possibly. Are you going to get it for 20% off? Probably not, maybe, but probably not. So, and you have to look to how long has the house been on the market. There's other factors as well. So the pendulum's swinging, things are adjusting quite a bit. Now, something else I want to mention in regards to pricing is every real estate market's different, just not, on the calendar like today's real estate market, but then geographically. So what's going on in Florida and what's going on in Sarasota can be really different than what's going on in the state or the area that you're coming from. And even within Sarasota, Siesta Keys market could be different than Lakewood Ranch. So we've got sub-markets as well. So if something's happening up where you're at, or maybe you're reading in the paper and they'll say the National Association of Realtors says X, Y, and Z. Keep in mind, that's for the whole country. But when you look at a specific area, we need to look at what's going on right there at that moment or in the last weeks or months. So you can't put a blanket over the whole country and say, well, this is what the newspaper said. It doesn't work like that. So you want to be really cautious about that and just be smart and do some homework, do some education and figure it out. And again, you can talk to your agent, talk to me, and we'll help navigate those waters and we'll work on that together. One other thing about our market is we do still have high demand of buyers. Our inventory has improved, but it's still low, and we still have a good chunk of cash established buyers. So I don't anticipate those things changing anytime soon. So our demand here is still really strong. So long story short, look at those numbers, look at the prices. The sellers don't hold all the cards anymore like they used to. They probably still hold a few more just because of lower inventory and higher demand. But we're starting to see more of a middle ground between those buyers and sellers. Number 2, the roofs. So let's talk about the roofs of these homes. And this is a nice lead in because when we talk about pricing, of course, you're talking about location and size, and then of course, condition of the home. So when we're talking about condition, it's of course updates, whether it's got a pool, the location, the view, we could go on and on. In the state of Florida, the roof is a huge talking point. And if you've watched a number of my other videos, you'll know this is not the first time I've mentioned this, but I still talk to people who are surprised and they have not necessarily heard this information. So it's worth repeating because it's such a big deal for both buyers and sellers. So here in the state of Florida, insurance companies are really cracking down on the condition and age of the roofs on homes. And it comes because of so much insurance fraud that has gone on after hurricanes. And so the insurance companies are really taking a beating. So as a result, they are cracking down. So this is what the insurance companies say. And these are general things. So if you have a shingle roof, they really don't want the roof to be more than 15 years old. And some carriers will say 12 or even 10 years and has to be completely free of leaks and no damage. Now I'll have sellers say, Jill, it's okay. I got 30-year shingles. I've got 20-year shingles. There's 8 years of life left on my roof. Well, sadly, the insurance companies don't care. They look to see when was the permit pulled. Oh, it's 18 years old. This roof is. We're not going to insure it. They just don't care. Now, there's a few carriers out there. If you want to pay big bucks for, if the roof is older or kind of questionable, you might be able to get insurance for a short period of time, but it's going to be costly. So I'm just talking about the shingle roofs. Then there's different thresholds for a tile roof. Usually in our area right now, the metal roofs should be okay, but we'll just keep the conversation on shingle roofs, but please know that we have to talk about it with other roofs as well. So if you have a tile roof that's 30 years old, then that might be an issue also. So here we go. If you want to sell your house and your roof is more than 15 years old, you need to run some numbers, look at your budget, look at your bank account, and decide what you want to do with that roof. Because if a buyer is getting a loan, they have to have homeowners insurance, and if the roof is disqualified, then they can't get insurance. They're not buying your house. And sometimes you just don't really know which way that's going to fall until you get really far into the process. Your house is under contract, they've had inspections, and then information is sent from the inspector to the insurance company, and they'll kind of give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So you want to be cautious of that. I have a listing right now with a roof. Well, it had a roof that was a little bit older, and so I sat down with the sellers before we listed it, and I said, here are your choices. We can take that risk and see if a buyer can skate through and get insurance. Of course, it's going to hit probably your bottom line, or you can go ahead and get a new roof put on sooner than later, and we'll just have that taken care of, and then that's going to be a better draw for buyers. In the end, they decide to go ahead and put on a new roof. So you have to think that through, and even if you do have a cash buyer who doesn't have to get insurance, not all cash buyers are willing to take that risk. Very few are actually. So as a result of that, you're going to be getting even less money, because if a buyer's taking on that risk, that's a big deal for them. And then for buyers, before you go out and start looking at homes, or let's say you really love a particular home, this is what I do with my customers is I pull the permits. I look to see how old is that roof, because it might not. And then if you still really, let's say the roof is old and you really love the house, then and you're getting a loan, I'll call the listing agent up and say, okay, what kind of conversations have you had with the seller in regards to the roof? What are the chances of them replacing it or doing something so a buyer could get insurance? And if the listing agent says they can't do anything, there's no way under the sun that this would work out, then I have that conversation with the buyers and we go from there. Because of course, we don't want to waste time going and looking at a bunch of homes with old roofs that you're never going to be able to buy. So you have to be smart about that too. So just go in knowing that this is right now probably our biggest issue in regards to putting the whole deal together and having us get to the closing table is these pesky little roofs. So just be aware of all of these things. Roofs are super important in the state of Florida. Number 3, interest rates. So the old interest rates, they ain't what they used to be, are they? So you need to really be conscientious, buyers, if you're getting a loan, on when you're going to lock in that interest rate, and have a good talk with your lender about that. Because if you don't lock it in a timely fashion and the rates go up, you could miss out. But here's the other thing that's really important too, buyers, is if you're buying new construction, and of course you went under contract 12 months ago, 8, 6, 4 months ago, maybe the interest rates were lower at that time and now you need to lock in. And you go, okay, no problem. I'm good with locking in at this number. And the builder's saying, oh yeah, the house will be done by, the end of May. Okay, great. So maybe early April or something, you lock in to that interest rate because the builders are super confident you're going to close in May. And then guess what happens? You don't close in May. You close in June or July. And sadly, the builders are not closing on time at all. Like, I've done a ton of new construction. I've done enough now, and none of them are hitting those deadlines, those ranges that they give to the buyers, and even the end of the range they're not hitting. And usually they'll give like a 3-month range, and so it's not happening. So then what happens is you lock in, the house isn't done, your interest rate expires. So here are your options. You either take the current interest rate, which may be better, may be the same, may be worse, or if the interest rate is higher, you pay money to bring down that interest rate, to extend the rate lock. And buyers are really blown back by that because it could be another $2,000 or $3,000 that you weren't planning on spending. And so that's been a source of frustration for buyers for sure. And then sellers, another tactic you could use in regards to interest rates if you want is you could offer $2,000 or $3,000 to a buyer so they could pay points and bring down that interest rate. And so that might be an appeal to a buyer. So there's things that we can do at both ends. Now, please know, I am not a lender. I'm not a broker in that regards. I don't do anything with the loans. I don't follow the financing at all. So if you have very specific questions about lending, interest rates, I can direct you to the people that know way more than I do. But this is definitely worthy of having a conversation of, is you've got to be super mindful of those interest rates so you don't get caught off guard. And there is an old saying, they say, date the rate, but marry the house. So you're going to be in the house for forever, but you only have to be with that rate for a short time. So if the rates do go down, you could refinance in the future. Number 4, completion deadlines. I already mentioned this just a bit in the last point, that often with new construction, the builders are not meeting whatever deadline they give the buyer, whether it's the preliminary deadline or they kind of keep tweaking and adjusting it, narrowing it down as the process goes on. It's not happening. And it's very frustrating to buyers and sellers. So here's some things you need to keep in mind. First of all, they're all doing it. Okay, so don't think it's only this builder or that builder. They're all doing it. So don't think that the builder you're working with is going to be the exception to the rule. It's not. Now, with that being said, there's a chance they could be hitting a deadline. I can't say it would never, ever, ever happen where they get within that range, but I want you to be mindful that more often than not, it doesn't happen. So you can plan accordingly. So let's say you're selling your home and you're going to buy new construction and you're trying to time, when do I list my house so I don't have to stay somewhere else and I can move right into my new home? The chances of you kind of really nailing that is going to be super tough because they do give such a range. And in the contract you sign, like, I recognize, they're not making any promises on when this house could be done. It could be months later than what you expect. So you want to be very cautious of that because, like, last year or 2 years ago, maybe, I had a buyer who was purchasing a home and the seller was going into new construction. They're like, oh yeah, the builder's saying this, the builder's saying that. And in the end, the house was far from done. Now, thankfully, the buyers were buying the home as an investment property. So you could tell the seller was taking great care of the home. So, we worked it out and contracts were written up, agreements were written up where the seller stayed longer until her house was complete. But still, if let's say that buyer I was working with had to move in, then that seller has to move out and find some temporary housing in the meantime. And that can be quite costly to do that. So it's eating into the money that you just made on the sale of your house. So be very, very careful of that, sellers. And then buyers, sellers become buyers, right? You sell something, you have to buy something else. I had some folks who were going to, they were building here. They coming from California, and based on what the builder kept saying, they, got rid of everything in California, moved here, brought everything over, maybe put in storage, I think. And they had a rental set up for a couple months, and they were, okay, yep, we're good, we're flexible, but it just took so much longer. And so it was very frustrating for them too. They're like, we could have stayed out in California longer and taken care of some other things instead of coming here, sitting with bated breath, waiting for their house to be completed. And so it can be very frustrating. So just know that whatever the builder tells you, it may not be accurate. And not that they're trying to fool you or whatever, because they want to sell the house as quick as possible and be done with it and get their money too. Costs them more money every day that they don't close. But just know that these deadlines are super soft. Number 5, uncertainty. So there's definitely some general uncertainty of what's going on in today's market. And that's certainly a challenge for both buyers and sellers because people don't know what to do. There's some buyers out there who think that everything's just going to tank. And then other people have a more moderate approach to how this is going to work. So this is my food for thought for both sellers and buyers. So sellers, you want to list your house, get it on the market, and I honestly think there's probably more buyers out there who would be willing to look and purchase, but because of that fear and uncertainty, they're holding back a bit, and I'm not sure when that's going to open up and let loose. So sellers, don't take for granted the showings that you do have and the buyers you have, because maybe the more you wait, then you could be missing out. You could lose out on some solid buyers, some solid offers, and moving on in the process. And then buyers, the same idea. You're out there looking, you think, oh, okay, great. Maybe there's not multiple offers on homes so much, although I'm still seeing it a bit. I was doing it. I'm waiting to hear back right now from a multiple offer situation for some buyers I'm working with. So it's not that they don't exist, but you think, okay, well, I've got time. Everything's easy peasy, no worries. But again, those gates could open up when people have less fear or less uncertainty, and all of a sudden buyers, you have more competition than what you have currently. And so that could change on a dime, and then you're going to be frustrated because it might be, again, harder for you to get the house that you really, really want. So you need to be mindful of that. I would just say proceed with caution. And always, I just tell buyers and sellers all the time, because they always want to know, Jill, when's the perfect time for me to buy? When should I list my house? When? And I always just say, do it when it's right for you and your life. And in the end, I think you'll do okay. So you just need to sit down and think, do I want to hold back from what I really want to accomplish in my life and have done in my life, or where I want to live, whether you want to live here or move away from here and go somewhere else. Maybe you want to be closer to your grandkids, whatever that looks like for you. Just do it when it's right in your life, and everything else just seems to come together. So that's my word of advice in regards to all this uncertainty. So there we go. 5 things. Just some extra things for you to think about in today's challenges. I hope this is a help to you as you try to kind of process all this and figure out what's the next best move for you. As always, if you want to chat about this a bit more with me, if you're thinking about coming here or maybe you need to sell a property, then please shoot me an email. We'll schedule a time to talk. We can do a Zoom call, whatever you'd like to do. I'm happy to help you out so you can figure these things out. I appreciate you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care.